Good afternoon. So this week I started actively working on some loads, doing quotes, and I was hoping to have a load dispatched sometime this week. And there's always something, some monkey wrench in the wheels. So I thought, in case some people are watching that, are thinking about a career change or they want to go into freight brokerage, I just want to share my first experiences as a full-time freight agent with a large logistics company. First off, it takes, of course, a very long time to find loads, right? Once you do find a load, it's rarely something simple, like, hey, I got this, can I get a truck? As an example, I got a quote request from a customer. So it's one of those chippers on its own trailer, but for some crazy reason, it doesn't have a fifth wheel connection. It requires a pintle hitch, right? So, okay, I looked into this. I know, what kind of pintle hitch, like the diameter, the rating, and then, you assume that trailers like this, and this is about 30,000 pounds, not too bad, right? But usually they have electric brakes. At least here, I know in Canada, any trailer that weighs over 10,000 pounds must have its own brakes. And also, you need a Class 1 or AZ or AZ license, which kind of like funny because it reminds me when I started as a driver back in the day, right? So I started as a courier driver, van, regular G class, like a small van. And then I started driving a tow truck, like a tilt and load or roll back, not roll off, but, like tilt and load, like a 5-ton truck. And all I had was a G license, which is kind of like here, like over there in Ontario. I'm in Alberta now, but it allowed driving any car, any pickup truck, actually in any commercial vehicle, but it limited how heavy your trailer can be, right? So I think it was 10,000 pounds for the G license. After that, you need A or Class 1. And so I remember they gave me this generator. I think it was like 13,000 pounds, and I almost got a ticket because I was stopped at the inspection station, and the guy scaled me and he says, hey, this is over 10,000 pounds. You don't have the class license for this, or license class. But anyway, so this load has a pintle hitch, right? Which is rare unless you are a heavy hauler and you do this kind of stuff all the time. But most of the time it's hard to find, a power only, as it's called, a tow away company that will have pintle hitch on the back. Actually, I was thinking about installing this when I was a carrier, because quite often I saw some of these loads, they were paying very good money. Again, because it's not easy to find a carrier, that has this. And I was thinking about installing one, like, sure. I mean, honestly, like on the very back of the frame, but I never did. And so people call me and they ask me questions. And of course, carriers that call me, I put it in comments, like where I posted the load. I put in the comment section in capital letters, it says pintle hitch required. And 3 guys call me and they say, oh yeah, we're calling about this load from that state to this state, or from this jurisdiction to this jurisdiction. And the first question I ask is, do you have a pintle hitch? And they're like, excuse me? I said, this load, it's not a fifth wheel connection, right? Oh, sorry, we don't have it. And I said, last guy, I said, I was just curious, like not trying to offend him. I said, I just want to double check because I remember specifically I put it in comments. Could you please check? Can you see it on your screen? So maybe it's cut off somehow. And the guy says, 1 second. Oh yeah, I can see it. It says here, I didn't basically pay attention, but that's what happens. First, you get a weird load, and then carriers, when they call you, they don't pay attention. They don't care what you put in there. Like, you might as well just leave that comment section blank because they will still call you and they don't have the right equipment. But then one carrier calls me and he says, what kind of brakes does this trailer have? And that's why I started telling you this little story about me almost getting a ticket for the generator, because you would assume it has electric brakes, right? But just for this guy and for my own sake, I decided to reach out to the customer, the guy who hired me to move this piece of equipment. So I sent him an email and he replies and he says, actually this one has air brakes. Now, man, now not only you need a pintle hitch, but you need some kind of a extra cable, right? Like typical trucks do not have such a long, air hoses, right? Because the fifth wheel is right behind the cab, but if you do a pintle hitch, usually it's on the very back of the truck. Like, how do you hook up the air hoses? And so that's one issue. Basically, you get a load where specific equipment is required and people don't read the requirements in your comments when you post a load. So that's one issue. And so I'm trying to find somebody, but nobody wants to do it. Now, the second issue I ran into is that a customer reaches out, potential customer, and says, hey, I have this load, but it's an auction. So I'm bidding on this machine, and if you could give me a quote, I'd like to know, how much to factor in as a freight expense. And I said, okay. So I reach out to my carriers in my network, in my database, and I find a guy who's in that area and he can do this load, and we exchange like 2,000 emails trying to determine when, where it's loading. We make the carrier update the insurance because they didn't have insurance for this kind of a machine. So we go through all this, and the carrier calls me, the customer calls me, emails me, and then the final stage before I can create a load confirmation is I need to get money from the customer, because I never worked with them before, and unless they want to open like a credit account, which would give them 30 days of 30 days to pay. So it's either a credit card, or they can do a wire transfer, or like e-transfer in Canada, or ACH in the States, right? And so I'm waiting for the customer to give me the okay, like, can I send you the forms to start the money part of the deal? And of course the question is, he mentioned it was an auction, so you already have this machine. And this morning, and I get up at 6:15 in the morning, and that's another thing with being a broker, because you have to account for all these time zones, right? And since I'm originally from Ontario, and this customer, he's buying this machine at an auction in Ontario, so which is 2 hours plus. So 6:15, it's already 8:15. So by the time I'm done with my toothbrushing and face washing and getting a cup of coffee, it's already 7 my time, 9 in Ontario, right? So you have to get up early. But the good news is that you can end your work early as well, because 3 o'clock here, it's 5 in Ontario, right? But it's still 2 on the West Coast, so you might as well keep working. But But that's the good news. Like I usually at my desk at 7, and I basically stop working around 3:30, you know. And then of course I have a break for lunch. But also this guy, so yeah, I'm waiting for this guy. And so this morning I sent him I see he sent me an email because we were arguing about some, you know, issues. The carrier had questions, I had to relay them, so finally we settled all this. And I asked him a innocuous question. I said, did you buy this machine? Are you already the owner? Can we proceed with the paperwork and eventual load confirmation? And the guy says, I will know this morning. Later this morning. This was like 7 o'clock my time. And the carrier calls me. So are we all good? Because he's anxious, you know. We made him update his insurance, add a clause to cover this particular machine, and he booked another load, you know. No, wait, I'm mixing up with another thing. No, this guy, I found a carrier, which is like funny enough. He's flying to Ontario to buy a truck. Just like amazing, you know, piece of luck. And he saw my posting about this load, which is basically like a towaway, power only. So all you need is a truck. And it goes exactly to the same province in Canada where this guy, the truck buyer, lives, you know. And you would think there would be such a nice, you know, karma kind of thing. So the guy flies to Ontario to buy his truck that he purchased at an auction, and then this other guy is buying a trailer, right? So hook them up together and we can all make some money. And the best thing for the trucker guy, for the carrier, is that this will cover his fuel and put a couple of bucks in his pocket, right? Because it's a pretty long distance between Ontario and, in this case, Saskatchewan. And then the customer, the guy who wanted to buy the trailer, eventually emails me. He says, I did not get the trailer, so I'll be in touch in case I need a truck in the future. So I said, no problem, I understand, thanks for reaching out. So I sent a message to the carrier, to the truck buyer. I said, bad news from my customer. It was an auction, so he didn't get it. Now, by this point, again, we exchanged 5,000 emails, right? We discussed this and that. Who's paying? Let's say this guy, the truck guy, picks up the trailer. What happens if it has bad tires or bad lights or seized brakes, right? So, okay, we talk about this with the customer, and then he says, okay, well, it should be in good condition. Yeah, I'm okay paying for that, like for if there's any existing damage, but is your carrier planning to put a load on it? Because he says, if he puts a load on it, I'm not going to pay for damaged tires. He says, if the trailer is empty, tires should be okay. And I said, wait, so we can tell the carrier not to put a load. Is that what you want? And again, it's another 20 emails back and forth, right? And the guy says, yeah, that would be probably the best, you know, if he just tows it empty. But his rate is super low. He's pretty much only allowing just covering the fuel expense, you know. Maybe a couple of bucks more. But it was low. It was low. And but that's the problem. So the problem is I start working with this gentleman where he was looking for a quote, but he was not the owner yet of this machine, right? Like, oh, I'm thinking of buying. So basically, next time something like this happens, I'll say, you know what? Call me when you have the machine. And I should probably give him like a rough estimate. Okay, so many bucks per mile. Just count on that. But when you want a specific truck, I don't want to waste my time, you know, when you don't even have the equipment, right? It's kind of like, you know, you're trying to hire somebody, you're buying a big home theater system with 20 TVs and 50 speakers, and you start looking around for local haulage company or trucking company to help you move this, but you haven't even bought the system yet, right? And then your wife makes you change your mind, and then you have to call the trucking company, say, sorry guys, I changed my mind, I'm not buying the speaker system. But in this case, it was the auction, the guy did not win, but I did so much work, right, trying to find the truck and coordinate with everything. So the pickup had to happen on a specific date, because otherwise the carrier, the buyer of the truck, said, he cannot wait 3 days sitting there. So he wants to leave, let's say, he was saying like Monday, like today's, what's today? Today's Thursday. So the truck guy says, I have to leave Monday with a trailer. Are we okay with that? And so a lot of work went into this, and it was all for nothing. So that's just kind of like a glimpse into what I have to deal with as a broker. So a lesson for myself as well, basically. Make sure a guy that calls me and asks me for a quote, make sure he has the machine, he has the load, right? But, it's a good learning experience. And then issue number 3, okay, I have the load is confirmed, the guy has the load. I have the carrier is confirmed, everything is good with insurance, everything is, class A1. Now again, the customer who owns the machine that I found the carrier for, I never work with him, he's not on our system, right? So again, either he has to set up a credit account, which takes time, or he can pay with a credit card, prepay us, the logistics company, or he can do a wire transfer, e-transfer, ACH, stuff like that. And so they say, I said, which would you prefer? Like, which way is easier for you? And they say, we don't have a credit card. Okay. Well, that would be faster, but if you don't have a credit card, we have, other ways to submit the money. And of course, most people in the States, they like ACH because it way cheaper than a regular typical wire transfer. But the problem with that is that it takes time. It's not like wire transfer. You send it in the morning, the recipient, usually, like I had this done when I was selling my trailers, like that 55-ton Fontaine I sold to a guy in Iowa. He sends money, I think he sent it like 11 o'clock or something in the morning. It's in my account at 3 p.m. on the same day. Okay, that's wire transfer. Of course, they charge him, I forgot, $30, $50, But most people don't want to pay these fees, so they use ACH, right? In US. ACH does not work in Canada, but we can do ACH because we have offices in US and Canada, so ACH works for us. But now I have the carrier who's on the way, who is also trying to, coordinate his loads to be in the spot where he needs to pick up this load for me. But now the customer is trying to send the money, but his bank says it's going to be over 24 hours, and I cannot dispatch the truck. There's nothing I can do unless the payment is made and the block is removed from the customer account, because it's basically, right now, if I try to go into the system and create like a load confirmation, the computer will not allow me to do that because there's no money in the customer's account, right? There's no credit. They don't have a credit account, they didn't pay with a credit card, and the ACH payment has been received, right? And so that's the issue. So now the carrier, I might lose the carrier, because the carrier when I told him this, he said, basically I said, we have a delay. Now the carrier says, all right, thank you. Hopefully we don't need to find something else. But we know how this business is and understand. I look forward to hearing from you. So you see? So because the guy found a load, the trucker, he found the load going to that area where my load is, and he was depending, he was counting on me, right? But now I'm stuck. There's nothing I can do unless the block is released from this customer's account because of the payment. And so that's the issue. Like, it's a lot of back and forth, thousands of emails just to move a small piece of equipment. It takes time, but I'm okay with this as a beginner, so to speak, right? So I'm still learning the system, the computer system, because it's very different from what I ever used before. But that's just a few issues. If you decide to become a freight broker or freight agent or logistics coordinator, so that's what happens. Either you get a load with some very weird specific requirements, like that pintle hitch load, or your customer fails to secure the piece of equipment he was trying to buy, or you have the load, the customer has the load 100%, they already purchased it, you have the carrier, and now we have an issue with the payment, which is a payment delay, which can disrupt this whole chain between me, the carrier, and the customer, and I can lose the carrier, and then I have to start looking again for the carrier, and then I can lose the customer because, okay, where's the truck? Like, you told us you have a truck, like, wait, the guy couldn't wait, right? We had an issue. And so those are some typical issues with customers. But the carrier I mentioned before, so the carriers, they don't read the information I supplied on a load, right? They see the trailer type required, it says power only, PO, right away they call, because that's the easiest load, right? There's no chains, no straps, just hook up and go. And so truckers like these kinds of loads. Yeah, calling about your power only from here to here. And that's, like I said, the first question I ask is, did you see that it requires a pintle hitch? Oh, pintle hitch. And now it needs air brakes, so you need extended, very long cables. Oh man, so I'm trying, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to move a load. And in the other news, my Hellcat is still not here. Some guys were making fun of me and commenting on my YouTube channel, saying that, one guy says, I'm pretty sure the dealer already sold it, so, to somebody else. And so out of, I felt kind of like funny, so I emailed the sales guy who actually lives in my building, the sales guy who sold me this car. And I emailed him, I said, hey, I'm getting these kind of comments on my YouTube channel. And he's like, ha ha ha, no, it's not going to happen. He says, I'll let you know as soon as the car is here. But I've been watching some videos, and there's an amazing amount of videos on YouTube about how easy it is to steal a Dodge Charger or Dodge Challenger. And the good news for me is that Chargers seem to be much more popular with thieves than Challengers, because the difference is, of course, Charger is a 4-door car, whereas Challenger is a 2-door car. And I had a Challenger 392 before, never had an issue, nobody tried to break in. But when I got a 5.7 liter Charger, right, people try to break in. And so now I'm watching all these videos, about how they can clone your key, how they can get in. And so I've been doing some research into this, and so I ordered online this little it's like a pouch, you know, it's like a pouch where you can, when you leave your car, you put the key in there, and it prevents the signal, the RF signal cannot get out, and so thieves cannot steal or copy your signal, because that's what they do, right? They steal your signal, and they can use another gadget, so it makes the car think that an original owner is trying to enter, right? And that little pouch solves this problem. So you never keep your keys, you know, in your pocket without that protection. So that's one thing I purchased, and also I bought something else. Oh yeah, another thing is, they say in Chargers and Challengers, I didn't even know this, but where the shifter is, the shifter, to the right of the shifter, there's a little tray, like where you can put some pens or pencils, you know, stuff like that. And turns out you can lift that tray, let's say for cleaning purposes, and right under there, they show, I haven't seen it on my Charger, but there's a bright red or yellow ribbon connected to a special lever that activates neutral mode on your car. So anybody that can break a window and you know, open the doors from inside, and they can pop up this cover, and they can just pull that lever, and the car goes into neutral, and then just they push it away or load it on a tow truck, right? And so there's a company in the States that makes a special steel cover that goes between that ribbon and the plastic cover, and it's like $40 plus shipping. So I ordered that one, so I'm gonna install it. So of course they can still take it out, but for that to happen, they'll have to mess with the entire shifter assembly. It's not easy, but that's the easiest way, right? They break the window, they get in, they put it in the neutral, they roll it away, or they put it in a tow truck. And so keys protection, that fob, you know, kill the RF signal, cover this neutral gear plate, and then of course there's all kinds of kill switches you can install. And also like the idea of a remote battery disconnect, you know. So let's say somebody's stealing your car, and you see them drive away, and you come out, you have 160 feet to disable the battery, right? There's like an app on your phone, you push the button, boom, the battery disconnects, the car stops. Or like in general, you know, let's say you store your car for winter, instead of disconnecting the terminals or taking the battery out, you just push that button, it disconnects the power completely. Now one thing I still trying to figure out, like what happens with the doors, right, where there's no power. How do you lock or open doors? So, but that's a topic for another research, right? So for now, that's all I have for now. So just wanted to show some, give you some examples of what I'm dealing with as a broker, or oh, wait a second. So the guy sends me, and the customer sends me a picture. I ask him, can you send me a picture of the machine, of the front of the machine too, because one carrier was asking, and he said it's a pintle hitch. Now I don't know, you guys, have you ever seen a pintle hitch? It's basically like a thing like this, right? And then the trailer has like a ball, right? And then this part on the car or truck goes like this, right? And there's a pin. Now what this thing has, and I suspected that's what it will be, it has a ring, like it has that massive ring, And so the truck has to have that kind of like jaws, right, that go into the ring like this, because it's heavy, right? I thought about this, that it cannot be a pintle hitch, because that's just for light trailers. So this is not a pintle hitch. But at least now I have a picture. I have a picture. It shows the machine from the front, and I can clearly see the type of connection. So at least now I know what kind of equipment the truck needs. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. So that's all I have for today. We'll continue the next day when I run into more problems as a heavy equipment specialist or freight broker trying to help people move equipment and machinery inside US, inside Canada, and between US and Canada. Thanks for watching.